Maintenance is huge in ductless, and that's kind of what we're going to talk about here. So first I want to talk about, I kind of have a sense because I talked with Brett and Chuck before I came, but how do you deal with dirty blower wheels on ductless systems?
So we started bringing, I mean, usually we just clean wherever. We started bringing in mini UV, the LED.
Yeah.
From
fresh air UV.
Fresh air UV.
Yeah.
So
does it work?
where I put them in, I find that they do work. But the problem with them is they fail a lot.
Right.
So what we started doing is, to coat them with the circuit shield.
Okay.
Right? Because what happens to them is they get wet, right?
Right.
The whole air is condensating. It corrodes and they start failing.
Right.
But I've seen them when they do work and they're on. I put them in places where you had, like every 3 months, I clean it, I mean, and I deep clean it, scrub it, brush it, everything's gone. And it's back in 3 months. I mean, really, really bad. And I did see that it did extend that a lot, or I didn't have growth for a lot longer.
Okay.
It did white, looked like it was probably dying.
Right. Did you get complaints from clients about the purple light?
I always put on the switch.
Okay.
So I haven't gotten any.
Okay.
There's one in my office above my head. That's why I put it
Yeah, makes sense. Do you think that was intentional?
Yeah.
Possibly? It's likely. It's likely. It's likely. So when you say, but like, what is your technique for actually cleaning them? Do you use, like you said, you use brushes, you use bib kits, you pull them out? How do you do it?
We did two options. Either we use bib kits, we have a price for a bib kit, or we remove it. I always use to remove it.
Yeah.
I use it, I got brushes, you put in the drill, it cleans it up really well. I know what everyone else does with it.
Yeah.
like jet spray. Jet spray is
Okay.
I would say probably what most customers do pull it clean and do it once a year.
Yeah.
Okay.
You can't get it clean. I mean, it's really bad.
Yeah, that's my preference. My preference is about once a year for, again, in our climate. It depends on, some just don't get quite as bad as others. Depends on how, what's in the room, the type of room it is.
I have no idea what you guys are talking about.
You don't have these issues? No, yeah.
It's rare. I've seen it happen occasionally, but we tend to be so much drier year-round.
Yeah.
I don't see these issues.
Yeah, high walls here just get cruddy, and so that's typically the way that we would the way that we do it is you just do the whole, kind of pull it out and undo the set screw, pull the blower wheel out, take it out, clean it, that kind of thing. Evaporator coils, we don't tend to see much on the evaporator coils themselves. Do you see a lot of growth on the coils?
If it's left too long, the whole area gets really bad.
Right.
It usually starts in the blower.
Yeah.
And then the whole supply.
It starts slinging water all over the place, and yeah, it gets
So
pretty
you
bad.
take the whole unit off, or just
No.
The blower, lift the coil. You can access the underside of the,
Gotcha.
the coil if you lift it up. The only way to clean that good is the bib kit, but you can still clean it pretty good if you lift it up, vacuum it.
Yeah.
But if you catch it in time, a lot of times self-rinse evaporator is fine. Slower wheel, you can access the whole supply area and the drain pipe.
Yeah. Okay, I see what you're saying. No, like I take the blower wheel out. You take it out. Okay, got it. You take it all out. Okay, good. Good. Yeah, and that's the thing, like having a bib kit, sometimes you just don't have a choice. Like, have you guys had the case where the set screw, like you back it out and the wheel just will not come off? Have you ever had to get one off anyway? Have you ever had to like actually get one off that's stuck because you need to get it off, you have to change the motor or something? They are a nightmare. Like I used to grind, because those shafts are like hardened steel. They are just nasty little boogers. I thought I was going to be cute and get it. No, it was an absolute mess, a disaster. So that's when it comes to ductless maintenance. If you are going to pull wheels regularly, you need to be really careful about it, because if you over tighten that set screw, or if you over tighten it in the wrong spot on the shaft, you put a burr on it, it will just not come off. And that's a really big deal. For those of you who are doing maintenance and you are going to pull one, be really, really careful with that. I also like to use a little bit of grease whenever I put it back on, just to make it easier to pull off later. It's not super necessary because it seems like it's a stainless shaft on those. I think it's probably stainless, right? It seems like it. It does rust for you? Huh. Yeah, ours, no, we don't ever get it to rust. But again, it's good. Just put a little grease on it. Also, the bearings, the end bearings, will tend to start to get a hum in them if you're not careful with them. Keep the grease together, don't let anything get in it, all that kind of thing, and make sure that you get that wheel set in the right position. You know, so this is, for those of you who are newer to doing it, when you get that wheel back on, don't just tighten it down right away, right? Get it in and then feel where it is and get it right in the center and kind of make sure that it spins freely in the center, and then gently tighten down that set screw. Don't go crazy on it. It does have to be tight enough, but don't go crazy on it because you're never going to get it off again if you do that. Yeah, good stuff. And then, you know, like I said, the coil just spritz it down. Have you used any sort of antimicrobial spray or anything special on the coils?
We used to use Bioscience.
Mm-hmm.
If we were going to get it back. We tried that for a while.
That's actually like a probiotic. Yeah. Is that the one you had to refrigerate or no? No, because there is one that you actually have to. I didn't know if it was their brand or not, but. Yeah, it's like and because you're actually dealing with live probiotics, not just. See, like enzyme-based cleaners are really popular now. How effective are enzymes? It's sort of like the byproduct of probiotics. The idea of using live organisms is that it can actually cut through biofilm. You know, it's not realistic to have techs carrying around a refrigerated product in their vans, and I get that, but.
And what method do you use to ensure that it does work?
So
What do you do to ensure that it does work? Well, you have to feed it every once in a while. You bring it goldfish and hamsters, and then it eats those. And chicken is good. Yeah, that's good. It's a good choice.
It's hard to prove, but they did have independent studies that they looked at, which did greatly reduce the amount of bacteria. Not only initially in the cleaning, because it did, because they got through the body.
Because you clean it, right?
But they stayed alive for a couple of weeks, and the levels they measured different spots in the coils, commercial stuff, and there was significantly less counts of both bacteria and mold.
Mm-hmm.
So that's.
Yeah, my experience is strictly just my own experience, I guess. We use the EVAP Plus cleaner from Refrigeration Technologies and the pan and drain spray on ductless. I use it on my house. My house is terrible. My master bedroom unit. I set it way too cold. I break all of my own rules, the things I tell you, because I'd like it cold. And I do what I like, darn it. I'm allowed. I'm a big boy. So I spritz down the coil when I'm done with EVAP Plus, and then I just put a little bit in the bottom row and in the drain pan with pan and drain. I don't overdo it because it can actually cause more issues. And it does seem to reduce the odors. Like I do notice, even as it starts to get dirty again, it does reduce it a little bit. So let's see what else here. Cleaning drains. What are you? Oh, go ahead, Jerry.
Real quick, any idea what I might be doing wrong? I've done a bunch of them, and the only one I've had a pattern of trouble with is the carrier X-Power inverters. I treat them all like they're delicate, very careful. I don't let the wires hang. But I've had 3 or 4 of them. When I go to fire it back up, it's done. It doesn't come back on.
I don't know. I don't really have a theory. Do you have any theories?
Okay.
Do you have any theories of why?
I just avoid it now.
Are you spinning the blower? Are you doing anything that spins the blower real fast or anything?
Nothing different than I do on any other.
There is and that's something to mention is that, and I've never seen it actually happen, but some people have mentioned that if you do any sort of cleaning, because some people have done compressed air or whatever, where you spin the motor really fast, and those motors have, and again, you're not doing that obviously, but I'm just going to say it anyway. Those motors have permanent magnets in them, and so you'll actually generate electricity when you do it, and it can backfeed the circuit and burn the circuit up. So you're actually because it's a permanent magnet, you're actually rotating a magnetic field, and you can burn the board up that way. Again, I've never seen that actually happen, but I have heard reports of that happening.
Touching the board.
Power off.
Yeah, even with power off, yeah, because again, with a permanent magnet, that magnet has these magnetic flux lines that actually can induce electricity. And when you spin it fast, you're actually creating a high frequency electrical signal that feeds back in, yeah.
When I'm done, to check, make sure it's not going to squeak when I turn it back on before I get the cover on. I might be doing it at that point, but not with air, just with my hand.
Yeah, but it would have to be so fast. You'd have to do it faster than what it would normally be, right? And that's where if you've ever taken nitrogen and spun a blower wheel of nitrogen, you can spin that sucker really fast. It's really fun. It's fun for the kids everywhere. You know, hey, look guys, look what I can do.
Would 410 make it go slower?
Would 410A make it go? Yeah, probably a little bit, especially once you have like icicles on it and all that. Yeah, it could be, yeah. Yeah, we're coming up with lots of good theories here. I think it's chemtrails that's doing it, honestly. I think it's the government, doing it. I think that's it.
I'm curious, how are you avoiding them now?
You know?
All right, so drains. How do you clean the actual drains on ductless systems or on any systems? Like, what are your well, mostly? We've already talked about other systems. Let's talk ductless specifically. How do you do it?
Vacuum, self-rinse.
Vacuums.
Pushing water at the same time.
Yeah.
So it flushes.
Recently started to use the drill pump. The drill pump.
Okay.
Stick it in a gallon
Yeah.
of water, run the drill.
Yeah. Yeah, drill pump's a good way. When you run, do you do a lot of condensate pumps?
Yeah.
And how do you typically do it when you have a condensate pump in place? What do you do for cleaning?
Just get rid of the sludge inside the pump.
Inside the reservoir? Yeah. Yeah, it is a good idea periodically with pumps. And I never used to believe this because I always thought if you have a pump, you have enough velocity that the tube never clogs. But we've actually seen cases where it does start to restrict a little bit. And so especially when you've got long runs or high lift, and so the pump's not moving quite as much water. And so we've taken to actually blowing that out with nitrogen or CO2, the actual line. What do you guys usually use, like a poly type tube or copper for drains? What do you typically see here? Poly? Yeah. And so then you got to be more careful, right, about blowing it because then you're going to destroy it if it's already coming apart on you. And the one thing for sure, again, for the newer guys, if you're ever running into a condensate pump, do not run cleaner through a condensate pump. I mean, unless it's the absolute mildest stuff on earth. No, when you're talking about any kind of cleaner, like get good at diluting cleaners properly. And this is good business advice. This is good technician advice, maintenance tech. Improperly diluted cleaners don't work as well. They take longer to rinse off. You're going to leave residue, which can cause damage, and it costs you extra money for cleaners. So a lot of companies kind of neglect this. Like, how do you know if you have the right amount of cleaner when you're doing it? And that's where really establishing what the protocols are for when to use cleaner at all. And then when you do use cleaner, what dilution ratio you should be using and how to go about doing that. Like, are you using a pump sprayer to apply it? Are you using a foam gun to apply it? And making sure that's really clear. I worked a lot with Refrigeration Technologies and Speed Clean on helping them communicate that to people about how to do that. And it's not always the easiest thing, but generally when in doubt, technicians tend to go more concentrated. I would say do the opposite. When in doubt, go a little less concentrated, right? It may take a little longer, but you do not want to leave residue on the system and you do not want to get concentrated cleaners on your eyes and skin. When you are cleaning, wear safety glasses. Like, you do not want to get stuff in your eyes. There are things that there's an argument about some things. Like, do you want to wear gloves when you're removing gauges, as an example? Like, it is a bit of a toss-up because if you wear gloves and then they freeze to your hands, that's going to actually make it worse in a lot of ways. And so we've got taken to, especially with newer guys, using the ones that have like the PVC coating on it. But then telling them same thing. As soon as it starts to spray on you, just get out of there, right? And if you need to go back in, then go back in with a rag, because you can always abandon a rag pretty quickly. Don't go in with your hands and gloves because you don't want to get that stuck on your hands. Drop cloth is really big. Strongly recommend having good sized drop cloth on your truck for when you're working with ductless. For those of you who don't have it. I like the drop cloths that are heavy and have the kind of, I don't know what that coating is on the bottom where it kind of stays put a little bit better. Those come in really handy when you're doing ductless because they put them in such dumb places sometimes. You can damage stuff. Yeah, good shop vac is good. Wet dry vac. I really like battery powered shop vacs. Nowadays they're just handy because then you don't have to worry about the cord when you bring it up on the ladder. Smaller battery powered shop vacs are really nice for working on ductless systems and cleaning. Having a bib kit available to you, even if you don't use it that much, sometimes it just comes in super handy to clean a system well. Really suggest, and again, of course, I have my brands that I promote because they pay me money to promote them, but I honestly, I do like Refrigeration Technologies because I like them as people. I'm not saying their product is better than anyone else. But really, when you're working on indoor systems, using stuff that is a balanced, non-alkaline, non-acidic cleaner. And making sure that whatever cleaners you're using, and I'm sure you are, whatever your cleaners you're using are rated for the application. So there was a time where I decided, I was a genius, so I bought some chemical from John Donne, some antimicrobial chemical, and I started spraying it on coils. And we had this lady who was had this horrible allergic reaction to it. And the problem ended up going away. She was fine. It was not a big deal, but it was like a wake-up call for me because it was not rated for that purpose. It was not rated for putting on evaporator coils.
What about food grade chemicals?
Yeah, and that's what I prefer to do that, because then that sort of establishes that even if it were to get in a food prep area, again, food grade doesn't mean you can squirt it in your mouth, right? It just means that it's okay to use in a food prep area, and that gives people a lot of confidence in case you ever do get somebody, because you'll get some people, and I don't know if you've had any, where they're like super afraid of chemicals, and if you can say, hey, it's actually rated by NSFW, I think that's what it is, National Food Safety. Something, whatever it is. Whatever it is. I was looking to you to know. And
I can't help you there.
Whatever it is. But basically, it's the Food Safety Council, whatever. And they basically say it's for a prep area, you can use it to clean in the prep area.
They'll find a way to complain. I remember when I was cleaning the coil on a water source heat pump above, there was like a receptionist nearby, and I was told she was notorious, so the maintenance guy told me, yeah, just use water. Don't even use any chemicals. So I used just water, and she still complained and went home early because of the smell. I'm serious.
In the ice machine, the chemical like this, what we normally use an ice machine, or food grade. The scalers and all these things, along with food grade, but we use that as well.
Yeah, nickel safe food grade ice machine cleaners are the way to go. Like, you should never use anything other than that. And actually, Refrigeration Technologies, that was one of the first things they ever made, was a nickel safe food grade ice machine cleaner. Electrical contact cleaner. I'm a big fan when you're working on ductless, or really anything modern nowadays, to keep contact cleaner on your truck. You get into that case where you've got some stuff that's on the board. Again, it's not necessarily going to cause a problem, but in your market, I bet you bugs, lizards, that kind of thing probably do take out boards, ants take out boards. And again, cleaning that out isn't necessarily going to prevent the problem. I had one of my maddest clients ever was a client who a lizard took out their board, circuit board on a ductless. He crawled in behind. And they said, don't they make lizard-proof units? Like, I don't think that's a rating. I don't know. Yeah.
We sell circuit shield, like silicone-based coating.
Okay.
Put in the coil.
Yeah.
Right back.
And does that seem to prevent even like frogs and lizards and that kind of thing?
Yeah, there is one.
Interesting. And do you just do it beforehand, or do you do it as like a add-on?
Add-on to a lot of stuff, but you can't sell it individually. A lot of times people doing a board or add-on.
Cool. That's something we need to offer. I knew it existed, but I never thought about doing that as part of a service. I like it. All right, some key maintenance steps, and this is true of all maintenances. This isn't just ductless. And again, whenever I talk about this sort of business process stuff, just a reminder, I'm not telling you the processes you need to follow here. I'm just giving you some best practices. I suggest always doing a pre-inspect. So before you start taking anything apart, you want to establish pretty well that it was already working. Right? Like, you want to have pretty good knowledge and maybe even some good solid proof that you can go to, like, it sounds normal, it's blowing warm air out the top of the condenser, air handler, fan coil is running and seems like it's working, all that stuff before you get started. So that way, if there are any issues in that pre-check, you kind of stop the situation, because you know how clients are. They'll call in for a maintenance and it's actually not working. Yeah, they'll do that. And then you touch something, what did you do? It was working when you got here. It's like, ma'am, it's 100 degrees in your house. I don't know what you're talking about. Cleaning is huge, all the way across the board, but especially on maintenance. And a couple of you have expressed that, like, cleaning is so boring. Kieran was saying that yesterday. He's like, I hate maintenance. It's so boring. It is true. It can be boring. But like most things, what I found, if you do something really well, it gets less boring. It's boring if you're kind of doing a crappy job. And I went through a period of time for a couple years where I was not doing good maintenances. I just wasn't taking it seriously, and I really found that my morale decreased. But when I got kind of re-energized and passionate again about doing a really good job at maintenance, I found that maintenance got a lot more enjoyable again. And usually it is getting in there and actually cleaning it. So for us in our market, that's things like actually opening up the condenser and really getting all the leaves and everything out of it and getting it nice and washed out and washing around the pan and that kind of stuff, so that you actually have that, just taking a little more care around that. For you in your market, if you do have any soil or anything that's touching the bottom of an accumulator or the bottom of a compressor, that is going to accelerate the corrosion. So there is a very real benefit to, even early in its life, just keeping it all very clean, I would imagine. Is what I'm saying correct, or is that right, wrong, and different? Okay. And whereas in other markets that may not have as much value, I think here, keeping that, even things like your line dryers, if you do have it outside, like for some reason Dwayne wants to really have it outside, he wants to fight with me about that, we're gonna thumb wrestle. I think that's the only way I could win. Yeah, so just doing a really good job of cleaning, generally speaking, and I also am a fan of, like, if you open a fan coil or you have the actual box around the plenum, anything like that, and there is growth that's starting to gain hold, I would clean it. I would suggest cleaning it. That doesn't take that long. Make the thing look aesthetically better. Even in the inside panels, the front of the blower, all that kind of stuff, though that doesn't make a huge difference in terms of operation, it does for the client, and they see it, and it makes you feel better too in a weird way, like just getting good at that. You'll see a lot of times, the wires that go into the blower, they'll get real kind of cruddy, and so I like to wipe all those off and make sure those get really clean. I know this is cheesy stuff, like I'm telling you super basic things, but this is what makes a good maintenance. Obviously, we've talked about drain cleaning being huge, and that's not just the line, that's also the pan. And the thing I always say is just clean it till it's clean. I was talking to Brett a little bit about this. I really want you guys to take responsibility for what is at the equipment. You can't control everything else. Like, it's very hard to do that. There are ways, but if you take seriously what you can see, the drain that's in front of you, the trap, the vent, the clean out, the drain pan, the port in there, have brushes, have everything, and get that really clean. At least then you've done mostly what you can do. Now, obviously, you got to have a way to flush the drain and clear that out. I think the pump and bucket method in your market is probably one of the most consistent ways. Shop vac in some cases is probably fine. But just taking that really seriously. And then confirm operation non-invasively. This is specifically for ductless systems, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that. I think I have a slide on here about that. And then clearly communicate what you did and the value. And here's a really big thing that I see a lot. You get some guys who don't take maintenance seriously, and you get some guys who like to throw the guys who don't take maintenance as seriously as they should under the bus with the client. And neither one of those is a good thing, right? You do not want to be a hero in front of the client at the expense of your coworker. It does not help anybody. Instead, go to your coworker afterwards and say something. Just say, hey, I was at that maintenance, you didn't do a great job, I had to do a bunch of stuff. Client brought it up that nobody else has ever done this before, so just make sure, man, like it doesn't look good for us. When the client says, well, nobody has ever done that before, I want you every time, right? What you don't want to do is say, oh yeah, well they should have, And what you say instead is, oh yeah, I'm not sure, maybe you just didn't see it, who knows, But we generally do a pretty good job at that. That's just keep it low key, keep it at the surface. Don't use that as an opportunity to try to look good. All right, so like we talked about, I do want you to do a couple things when you're confirming operation. The one thing is, if you did clean the evaporator coil with a bib, make sure you leave the bib on until you actually run it, because you're going to blow water everywhere, right? So make sure that you leave it on until you actually run it. If you use an application where you were using a lot of water and stuff, and you are going to start running it, make sure that you're prepared to deal with that water. And for me, when I'm doing ductless maintenance like this, I like to have a full-size towel with me. That's maybe a little bit to ask, but it kind of helps you manage it. So you can even kind of like be there when it first comes on and kind of hold it up. A lot of this stuff just isn't sexy how it looks when you're trying to do it the right way. It's like you just have to where does this all go? So I would suggest that. When you're verifying operation after a maintenance on ductless, I'm not telling you what your process should be on unitary. Some of you probably do still hook up gauges. It's not the end of the world. I don't love hooking up on the liquid line every time unless you have a quarter presser. I've already mentioned that. Probes and a quarter presser are my favorite way. It just prevents you burning your hands, but it also prevents the additional losses of putting hoses on every time. So I really would encourage you, if you are going to connect, use probes. If you want to connect to the suction line, that's not a big deal, right? Suction gas is not very dense. You're not going to lose a lot from the suction side. And that's okay. You can check superheat if you want. But I would say mostly on ductless, verify your discharge air temperature, run it up into its highest speed, so to really get it running full bore. Verify your discharge air temperature coming out of the unit, and then just grab your suction temp. That's what I would suggest doing. And if you track that over time and you're always ramping it up and you're keeping track of what the indoor and outdoor conditions were when you did it, you're going to be able to see trends. You're going to see like, hey, it's not performing as well.
I was just going to throw in, just like the VRF, how the VRF manufacturer is looking at the saturation temperature, because that whole, what looks like a liquid line is actually saturated vapor liquid. You can look at what your temperature is and get a pretty good idea of what your pressure is, right? So that can help you determine superheat as well.
It can. The only challenge there is, because we've done that a lot in testing, the only challenge there is it's not fully expanded yet.
Yeah,
because it comes.
The indoor unit to do, you don't want to do that right at the outdoor unit.
Right.
It needs to be done at the head.
Right. Yeah, that's a good point. You could do it at the head. Yeah, and then sometimes you can pretty easily get a clamp on there to measure that. So that is actually a good point. Yeah. That's my suggestion. Again, you guys can do whatever you think is best, but on ductless, I really don't want you losing refrigerant. They have small critical charges, and it can become a pain. Beyond that, it's just all the kind of basic stuff we've already talked about. Anything else on that? You guys are getting really bored. I can see it. Go ahead.
SEER. Don't quite understand.
Oh, okay.
SEER.
Good. SEER rating. I like that. Seasonal energy efficiency ratio. Ratio? Rating. Ratio. Is it rating? It probably is rating.
I thought it was rating.
For some reason, I used to know for sure which one it was, and I would make fun of people who said the wrong way, and now I'm the one who's probably saying the wrong way.
Well, now you got me questioning everything I never know.
Yeah, no, it's rating. It is rating, you're right. So EER is a measurement of performance, watts to BTUs, which is interesting because watts and BTUs are not the same unit of measure, right? So when you say it's basically how many watts you have to put in order to how many BTUs you produce out, right? That's what EER is. SEER is taking that and averaging it over an entire seasons of operation, right? So an entire year's worth or season's worth of operation and cooling, how did it perform? And that's all it is. Now, this is the trick, though, is that you have to have standard conditions that's based on. So in both cases, they're based on standard conditions and standard rules. EER is just a snapshot at a fixed set of conditions, and SEER is a range of various conditions over a period of time, averaged. And that's it. It's watts to BTUs.
And
That
then
is-
they changed those nominal
Correct.
test conditions at January 1, 2023. Right?
Sure.
Yeah. So they used to test everything at like really, really unrealistic conditions. Now it's still unrealistic, but a little less unrealistic conditions.
And one of the biggest is that they increased the static pressure testing. So now they're testing it under conditions that would actually be like with real ductwork on it. So that's what SEER and EER2 is. It's just saying, hey, rather than it being kind of dumb and not real, we made it a little bit more honest. But again, does that really matter? No, because it's a disembodied number that nobody knows what it means anyway, right? So it's not like who really cares? Now, the thing I care about, and this is what I'm going to repeat once again, are SEER numbers that are like, oh, this is a 30 SEER unit. And I remember when Carrier came out with a 30 SEER ductless. And that's not real because even compared to other units, they were getting that 30 SEER by artificially increasing that suction pressure, artificially increasing that evaporator temperature, and so the thing didn't dehumidify. When you just focus, the way I put it is, sensible BTUs are cheap, latent BTUs are expensive, right? Cooling a house is cheap compared to drying a house. So when you build a unit that's really good at cooling a house and really bad at drying it, you can give nice looking numbers, if that makes sense.
Thanks for watching. If you're willing, give this video a thumbs up and drop us a comment. Don't forget to hit that bell icon to stay updated with all of our future videos. And as a quick reminder, HVAC School isn't just a YouTube channel. Dive deeper with us at our main website, hvacrschool.com. Curious for more knowledge on the go? We've got you covered. Tune into the HVAC School podcast, available on all your favorite podcast apps. And while you're at it, join our thriving Facebook group. Also, don't miss out on our free mobile applications available for both iPhone and Android. We're all about community. For techs, by techs.